No, the Great Compromise wasn't the only compromise made. There was the Three-Fifths Compromise too. Because the bigger states down south, they were like, hey, we have more people because we have slaves. Slaves should be counted for the population. Now, the northern states and the smaller states were like, no, you don't count them as citizens. Why are they going to be counted towards the population? That doesn't make any sense. You just want to rule. And the southern states were like, well, yeah, but, we still want them to be counted. So there was bickering going on, and what came out of this was the Three-Fifths Compromise. Three out of every five slaves were counted towards the population of a state. So that kind of helped the South out a little bit. The South was like, hey, yeah, so we can buy more slaves and we can increase our representation. This is awesome. This is really, really good. And the North was like, sure, go ahead, do what you want to do. It's going to backfire eventually. But, so, for every 5 slaves, 3 of them counted towards the population in the United States. So that was the Three-Fifths Compromise. We just made all these compromises, and what else needs to be put in the Constitution? Well, we don't want a superior leader. We don't want one person making all the decisions for everyone. So what we need to do was we need to break it up. We need to break the government up into different little parts. So what we created was branches of government. Yeah! We have 3 branches of government. The legislative, the judicial, and the executive. The executive branch made up the president and the vice president. They enforce the laws. The legislative branch, made up of Congress, which is the House of Representatives, and the Senate, they make the laws. They write their bills out, they get them signed, they send them to the president, and they become laws. So the legislative branch makes the laws. And then we got the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, the courts. We got the court system, something we did not have under the Articles of Confederation. But now we have a court system. We got the Supreme Court. And what do? They interpret the laws. They look at the laws and say, hey, are these laws constitutional? Do these laws go with what the Constitution said? If so, they can be laws. If not, they say, nuh-uh, don't go there, girlfriend. These are unconstitutional laws. They can't be laws. So those are the 3 branches of government. The legislative, the judicial, and the executive. 3 branches. So along with the branches of the government, we need a system of checks and balances, where one branch can't be overpowered by another. For example, the Senate and the House, they want this law to be passed, and they send it to the president, and the president goes, I don't want this law to be passed. He can veto it. So if the president doesn't like the law, he can veto it. And the Senate and House are like, oh, what can we do? Well, they can do a 2/3 vote and then override the president. But then now we need to go to the Supreme Court and see if it's constitutional or not. So there's a way for everyone to be checked, so no one oversteps their boundaries. The president can't declare war. He can send troops places, but he can't declare war. Congress is the only people who want to declare war. So that's a system of checks and balances, where one branch has to check the other branch. So that's a big, big concept within American government, is checks and balances. So we have our 3 branches of government. We create a constitution with, those are in the articles. We create a constitution with 3 parts. The preamble, which states the purpose of the constitution, to protect people for domestic tranquility, all that good stuff. The articles, which, the first 3 are the branches of the government, then goes on to states' rights, that kind of thing. And the third is the amendments. And the amendments are made up of the Bill of Rights as the first 10 amendments. So we got preamble, we got articles, and then we got the amendments. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So we have this awesome constitution written, and now we need to sign it. But there are some groups that don't want to sign it. There are 2 groups, the Anti-Federalists and the Federalists. The Anti-Federalists did not want to sign this constitution. They were like, hey, why do we want a big, strong central government? Why do we want that? We had that with Britain. We don't want that. Get that away from us. And the Federalists were like, we need a big, strong central government. to help run this country. We need a direction. We need a president of the United States. We need something. We need a way for laws to be passed. We need a checks and balance system. So this isn't like Britain, but we need a strong central government. And Anti-Federalists like, don't go there. We're not signing this. So what the Federalists did was they said, hey, let's put a Bill of Rights within the Constitution at the end with the amendments. So if something needs change down the road, you can amend the Constitution easier, but the Bill of Rights is going to stay, and this is how it's going to work. These are your freedoms. And the Anti-Federalists are like, this could be interesting. And so they agree, and they sign the Constitution with the Bill of Rights. So what are the Bill of Rights? We talked about this in class, and the Bill of Rights are all the rights that you have as an American citizen. They are laid out in the first 10 amendments of the Constitution so that you know exactly what your rights are. The First Amendment, we talked about. I had the cool little hand game for it. So let's do it real quick, okay? So everybody, get your hand ready, okay? 5 freedoms in the First Amendment. The freedom of speech, the freedom of press, the freedom of religion, pointing up to the heavens, freedom of assembly with the little people, boop, 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 and the freedom of protest. I'm protest or petition. Those are the 5 freedoms in the First Amendment. So you have those 5 freedoms as a society. We have the right to bear arms, the Second Amendment, the gun, Second Amendment, gun, right to bear arms, and we know that's very controversial today in society. Should we be allowed to have guns or shouldn't we? People say both ways, but right now it's our right as an American citizen to own a gun if we need to. There are also some other ones. We're not really going to get into much of them. Search and seizure. Police can't barge into your house, without a warrant, search you guys. Due process. Everyone is awarded due process. That means that the state must respect your rights as a citizen, even if you're in jail waiting to hear a trial. You have right to a fair and speedy trial. There's so many no cruel and unusual punishment. Remember how I said when I was little, I was taking swimming lessons, and my swim teacher used to go 1, 2, 3, face wet, and dunk us in the water for like 10 seconds. I thought that was cruel and unusual punishment, but it really kind of wasn't. But in society, there's no cruel and unusual punishment. Even though that was cruel and unusual. The last 2 amendments are like, if anything's not in the Constitution or if it's not against the Constitution, the rights either go to the people or the or the state, not the federal government. So the Constitution lays out what the federal government's jobs are. If it's not in there, that power then goes to the state or even the people. So that's the Bill of Rights. And that's the last part of American government that we're going to talk to. Now, we've had this country. We all signed the document. We all signed the Constitution. The Constitution is law. And now what do we do? What do we do now? We're in this brand new created nation. Where do we go from here? How do we launch this nation? That's the next thing we're going to be talking about in class. How do we exactly launch this nation? And what are some things that happen during the launch of the nation? So get ready, hold on to your seats because we're going to be diving into this soon. So enjoy and good luck on your test.